So you see it everywhere, right? Companies are pouring billions of dollars into artificial intelligence, hoping it's going to give them a massive competitive edge. But here's the crazy part. Even with all that money and all that hype, the huge majority of AI projects are just failing to deliver. And we're not talking about a small hiccup here. This is a huge systemic problem that's costing a fortune. So let's break down what's really going on.
All right, so let's start by digging into this AI project paradox. It's this huge gap between what AI promises and the painful reality a lot of teams are bumping up against on the ground.
Take a good look at this number, 80%. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. It's a pretty shocking figure, right? But this is the number that keeps popping up in all the industry reports. It's the estimated failure rate for corporate AI projects.
And that, of course, leads us to the million-dollar question. Why? I mean, with all these brilliant people and all this cash being thrown at AI, how is it possible that 4 out of every 5 projects just aren't making it? Well, here's a hint. The answer has less to do with the technology and a whole lot more to do with management.
Okay, so this gets us right to the root of the problem. It turns out there are really 3 fundamental misunderstandings that are just derailing these initiatives before they even have a chance to get off the ground.
Okay, so reason number 1, and this is probably the biggest mistake people make. They treat an AI project just like a regular IT project. Think about a typical software project, right? It's pretty straightforward, very code-centric, but AI is a whole different beast. It's exploratory, it's uncertain, and it is fundamentally data-driven. Trying to use a rigid, old-school plan for an experimental journey like that, well, it's just a recipe for disaster.
All right, number 2, and this one is huge. It all comes down to the data. You've probably heard that old saying, garbage in, garbage out. Well, with AI, that's not just a saying, it's the absolute truth. If you try to train a model on data that's poor quality, or biased, or just plain irrelevant, your results are going to be useless at best, and maybe even harmful at worst. So think about that. The project can be doomed from the start, way before anyone even writes a single line of model code.
And that brings us to reason number 3. Teams are trying to run these projects without the right playbook. You know, AI has all these unique challenges, things like model validation or this thing called data drift. That's when the real-world data starts looking different from the data you trained your model on. These things just don't show up in normal projects. So without a special game plan, teams are basically flying blind.
So yeah, flying blind is not a great strategy. If the old playbook is broken, what's the new one? Well, this is where the Project Management Institute, PMI, stepped up. They've actually created a whole new methodology and a certification specifically to tackle this exact challenge.
They call it the PMI Certified Professional in Managing AI, or PMI-CPMAI for short. And you got to pay attention to the wording here. This isn't about turning you into a data scientist. No, this is about giving you the framework to manage these unique, data-driven projects and to make sure they're built responsibly and ethically.
All right, so let's pop the hood and see what makes this thing tick. What does this methodology actually look like? Well, it's built on a few key ideas designed just for the lifecycle of an AI project.
And this chart? It really tells you everything you need to know about the priorities. Just look at where the focus is. More than half of it, a full 52%, is about identifying the business needs and the data needs. It's proof that success isn't about having the coolest algorithm. It's about nailing the business problem and getting your data foundation rock solid from day one.
The whole methodology is built around these 6 phases. You start with understanding the business, then understanding the data, way before you ever start thinking about a model. But here's the really important part. This is not a straight line. It's a cycle. You're constantly learning, constantly refining, and a lot of the time you'll find yourself looping back to an earlier phase because of something new you've discovered.
So, how do you manage a cycle like that without it turning into chaos? Well, the methodology has this really powerful tool it uses at the end of every single phase. It's a formal go, no-go decision point. Honestly, the easiest way to think about it is like a traffic light for your project. So if you get a green light, that means go. Simple as that. The business case is solid, the data looks good, you've got the resources you need, you're clear to proceed to the next phase with confidence. Now a yellow light, that means caution. This is where you've spotted some risks. Maybe the data quality is a little iffy, or not all the stakeholders are on the same page. You don't kill the project, but you pump the brakes. You absolutely do not move forward until you've sorted those issues out. And then there's the red light.
Stop. This is your critical kill switch. This means you've found a fundamental flaw. Maybe the data you need just doesn't exist. Or you realize the return on investment just isn't there. This is what stops you from pouring good money after bad on a project that's destined to fail.
Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. We've talked about the problem, we've looked at the framework, now let's talk about the core philosophy behind it all and the practical side of actually getting certified.
You know, if there's one single idea to take away from this whole methodology, it's this mantra right here. Think big, start small, iterate often. It's so powerful. You have that big, ambitious goal, but you start by proving it with a small, focused project. Then you learn from it and you build on it again and again. This is the perfect antidote to those massive, big bang project failures we talked about at the beginning.
And if you're thinking, okay, this sounds interesting, the good news is that getting certified is actually pretty accessible. The exam itself is 120 questions in about 160 minutes. The only real requirement is that you take the official prep course. But, and this is the really interesting part, look at that last line. No prior project management or AI experience is required. This whole thing is designed to build the skill set from the ground up for pretty much anyone.
So, that really leaves us with one final thought, one big question for you. As AI gets woven into pretty much every industry, the line between success and failure is going to be drawn by who has the right approach. The question isn't if you'll be doing AI projects, it's whether those projects are going to be AI-powered or AI-paralyzed.